This side is actually a pain in the ass. I have to use a torch. And I still have 2 more bolts left. And as you can see, this one is rounded off and this one is almost rounded off. I was able to loosen this one and this one. And I had to use a socket like this for that. So yeah, it's really, this side is actually killing me. So I'm gonna be heating it for a long time, and then with that socket that I have, I'm gonna try to loosen it. Hopefully it comes off, because these 4 bolts, they hold the rotor to the bearing assembly, and without taking them off you can't do anything. And also I was gonna say, so it's easier actually to do it like when this thing is still on the car, because if you take everything off, the rotor and the bearing assembly, it's gonna be really hard for you to fight with those bolts. So everything is easier to remove when it's actually still on the car. This side, it's not going the way I planned. 2 bolts came out. 2 of them they stripped, so I have to drill them out now. And I already got 4 new bolts for this thing. Yeah, so it's a really pain in the ass, but I gotta do this thing. Okay, so the last piece came off of the bolt, so I just need to clear this spot. Okay, and because I will still be able to remove to separate the bearing and the rotor, because this bolt goes into the rotor. So I'll still be able to do that. And I have to do the same with this bolt. And yeah, and then after that I can start, you know, taking off the control arm and the tie rod right here. Caliper is off, as you can see. After like 30 minutes, here's my progress. As you can see. So I'll be hammering, chiseling this thing out, and hopefully I can, you know, start removing other stuff to replace this stupid rotor. Okay, so this thing actually came loose. Alright, let me just take it out completely. Here's my bolt that I was struggling with. Okay, this outer tie rod is loose right here, and this one is loose also, as you can see. And I have the brake hose and this thing, the ABS sensor disconnected, the retainer knuckle is disconnected. I just have to remove this axle off of there, and then I'll be ready to put those long bolts in there. Well, actually I have to loosen those 4 bolts first that hold the bearing to the steering knuckle. And after that I have to put those long bolts and again hammer them. So I'm removing those 4 bolts that hold the bearing assembly now. And then I will put those long bolts in. The axle is out of the knuckle. I left the lower bolt joint in place because it wouldn't come out too. So what I'm gonna do now, to make more space, I'm gonna remove the inner axle joint, and I'm gonna move everything forward, so I'll have a lot of space in here. Okay, so this axle is right here in front of me. As you can see, I have a lot of space, so I might put something over here to protect the boot, maybe like a cardboard, because this sharp rusty vacuum plate is, it's kind of, yeah, suspicious. So now it's time to grab these bolts. As you can see, they're bent from last when I performed the brakes on that side. Okay, I'm gonna thread them in. Let's use the bolts that are less bent. So I had to use 4 bolts on that side. You might get lucky. Also, it's much easier if you have air hammer. So you can do it with the air hammer. Alright. Let's see, I might actually put maybe one more. And then just start hammering on them. Here, 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 here. You should see the bearing go this way. Yeah, so just keep hammering until this thing is out of the knuckle. And then you can start swapping the rotor. After hammering, we got this thing out. We can remove these bolts. Here's our thing right here. And you want to clean this spot and also around the bearing right there. But now, first of all, let's just swap the rotor. This is your bearing, and these 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the bolts that I was removing before I started doing anything. Okay, that's these 4. They hold the rotor to the bearing assembly. Okay, I removed the last bolt. Now I can flip this thing around, and here's my bearing. Okay, so now I would just have to lift this rotor up and just remove it from over there. Alright, so the rotor is out. Now I'm left with the bearing and hub assembly. Okay, now I can clean the new rotor and put it on. Just put the new rotor. Okay, now you have to rotate it. Okay, right here. So you have to line up those holes, all 4, and then you flip it around and then you put the bolts through. Where the bolts go, now I just have to tighten them and you'll be able to put everything back. I'm using new bolts for this because, as you remember, the old ones, they're done. Only this one is like in good shape. The rest of them are just gone. So I got new bolts. Now doing it by hand, and then when I put it back, I'll just tighten it with the ratchet. Already cleaned right here. Just gotta put anti-seize so next time it comes out easy. Now this thing has to line up with these holes, and then you're gonna take your old bolts and put them right there this way. Okay, so I started the bolts. Alright, there. Started now using 12mm socket and ratchet, and I'm just gonna draw them in. So again, I'm going star pattern. this way. These bolts are gonna draw in this bearing assembly. And I have to switch back and forth between bolts all the time. So just keep going until this thing is almost flush. Things should look after you tighten them all the way. So that's how this thing looks like. Now I'm gonna put the axle back in, and after that we'll see. We'll start putting the control arm back and the tie rod. Inner axle joint is in. Now I can put this one back. Alright, so let's put this one back. Okay, so this thing is almost ready. So I have to put an axle nut back on, have to tighten this control arm, put the tie rod in, and then have to take care of this ABS wire. I have to put 2 bolts to retain the wire. And then I'll be left with the caliper and just brake pads. I'm gonna take care of the bracket, of the pins and new shims. Everything is attached except for the caliper and brake pads, so I'm gonna put the brake pads on caliper. So everything is ready to go, and I can put the wheel back on, put everything back, and ready to test this thing. Alright, so that's that. We're going and test drive this thing.